when she was 7, so. Oh, wow. And her dad died, right up, I forget what year he died, but they're gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Ken,
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, I started taking here every day. My blood sugar been running a little high. Well, I had a A1. My last A1C was over a 7.
Yeah.
And I went taking this cinnamon. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
about cinnamon.
Sure.
It lowered my blood sugar.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been.
You take it with a meal?
Huh? Yes. Take it with a meal.
Yeah.
Yes. But today, since I eat something I shouldn't eat, I took another cinnamon. See, you can take up to 3 cinnamons.
I take cinnamon.
After each meal. You can.
Yeah, I take cinnamon. You're supposed to take it before you eat.
Yeah.
So
well,
it can become active.
That's
Is that what you've been doing?
Well, I've been taking mine after I eat, breakfast in the morning, and then
How come you don't take it before?
Well, I guess I could. It wouldn't really matter, but I take my metformin and all that after I eat my breakfast, you know.
Okay.
I do that, you know.
Okay. Sure, you don't want to take it on an empty stomach,
But,
I
I was
guess.
surprised my doctor didn't address, well, my A1C, I think, was up to a 7.1 or something like that. I guess it was okay, I guess.
Yeah. Well, 7 is the goal with the
It's a
ADA.
goal. It used to not be the goal. Oh, it used to be, say, it's 6, I think.
No,
They
it
did.
depends on who you're talking about. The Endocrinologist Association is 6.5.
6.5.
The American Diabetes Association is 7.
But under a 6, you're pre-diabetic, aren't you?
Well, if you're under 5.7,
5.7?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a 6.1 last time I had mine checked.
Oh, yours is good. Yours is
Yeah.
good. Wasn't too bad.
No.
You still have trouble with high readings sometimes, or?
Well, I may have one right now. I don't know. Yeah, I've got 154
Well,
climbing.
that's not bad. I had one this morning. I checked my blood sugar, 170.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you talked to Rick lately? I was just going to tell you, I called him. He called me last night, and he's sick.
Oh, he is?
Oh, well, he had a lot of congestion. He couldn't hardly talk to me, and he told me, I understood him say his feet has been a swelling,
Yeah.
and he said they've turned black. And I said, you have any feeling in them? He said he had feeling in them, but he said they was swelling on him, and you know that's what he told
Does
me.
he have a doctor's appointment?
I think he was going to go see a doctor because
Okay.
he couldn't even hardly talk to him. He was
Wow.
he kept choking up. He said, well, he gets kind of choked up, and he has to drink water.
Yeah, I need to give him a call.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is it. Hey, last time it was just 6, Cleo. But we had 6 people here last time, but I made these little recordings and made several of them. But one of them got over 1,200 views, and another one got about 600, and several of them got in the 200 to 300s. So it's not just you. I'm doing this to reach out to the community, and I got several more subscribers to this channel that I've got, and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this. And I'm basically going to be reading through. And when I get to the end of a section, I may ask if you have a comment or question or anything as we go through it. But we're going to get started now. I don't guess the other couple's coming tonight. So here we go. The parrot was curious about the camera in Brazil, just like we should be curious about our attitudes and the way we eat for diabetes control. Getting blood sugar under control may seem like an impossible task, especially when we consider the hidden factor of stress. Stress is an ever-present part of life, but we must control it. Let's continue to look at building the powerful attitude builder for health, gratitude. And here's God's wisdom principle for this. Now, someone might say something like this is not God's wisdom. What in the world do I have to be thankful about? I feel overwhelmed. But God's wisdom says this: good news brings health to the body. Like cold water to a weary soul is good news from a distant land. And so we see that gratitude, there's been much research about it and how beneficial it is. Here are some of them: health benefits from the practice of gratitude, as shown from the extensive research by Dr. Robert Emmons of the University of California at Davis, by researchers at the University of Pittsburgh, University of Manchester, University of Pennsylvania, and the University of Michigan, and more. From this research, a practice of gratitude contributes to feeling more optimistic and connected with others, sleeping better, improving medicine and meal compliance, exercising more, and reducing levels of the stress hormone cortisol. So, at one time, about the only resource people had was their attitude. And hopefully it was an attitude of gratitude. But the first American to receive insulin was James Havens. And he had few resources. Doctors diagnosed James he was about 14 years old in 1914. He became the first American to receive insulin in 1922, and he lived for almost 8 years on Dr. Allen's starvation therapy, keeping glucose from spilling over into the urine at 180 milligrams per deciliter. By the spring of 1922, he had lost 24 pounds and weighed 73 pounds and a half. He was too weak to sit in bed, and he cried most of the time. He was 22. His condition is not such as to hold any hope, his dad said in 1921, and he's anxious to die and just end his misery. So on May 21st, 1922, he received insulin. He lived another 38 years. On May 21st, 1922, when it appeared that James had only a few days to live, he became the first American to receive insulin. He lived another 38 years, and he died not of diabetic complications, but of colon cancer. James wrote this to Dr. Banting. He said, "A week ago last Thursday marked an historical event as I then tasted my first egg and toast." And egg on toast is my idea of the only food necessary in heaven. So, in other words, he's grateful. And he had toast on carbs for the first time in 8 years. And so he had every morsel of food that he ate meticulously weighed by his mother for over 7 years. We never know how beautiful results will appear when we persevere with patience and planning. And I need to, I think I've got this light on, don't I? No, I don't. I turned it off. Yeah. Okay, I'm okay. Okay. Dwayne? No. What's your husband's name?
David.
Yeah, David. Is he not well?
His allergy, he's miserable.
Okay. Good to see you.
Good to be.
Yeah. We need to have a routine gratitude habits for greater control. You may have heard the story of the man who went to a monastery in the Himalayan mountains. And this was a place where there were few words spoken. Each resident was allowed to say 2 words every 7 years. That's when they were before their supervisor. And so when the guy goes in to see his supervisor for the first time after 7 years, he said, "Bad food." And then another 7 years passes, and he's in front of his supervisor, and he says, "Bad diet, bad food," is what he said. And then after another 7 years, there he is before the supervisor again, and the supervisor said, "Well, what are your words?" And he said, "I quit." And he said, I'm not surprised, the only thing you've been doing since you got here is complain. But we don't have to be like that. We can have the attitude of gratitude that whoever seeks good finds favor. That's what we need to do, seeking good. And so what can we do? Well, there's the present, the precious present. Here's an example. This principle of gratitude has been lost in recent published books and articles for diabetes management. Way back in 1942, Dr. Elliot Jocelyn advocated to his patients to be cheerful and also to be thankful that his disease is not of a hopeless character, but a disease which his brains will help him conquer. John, a patient of Dr. Elliot Jocelyn, was going blind in his late 30s, and yet he wrote this in 1959. Yet I hasten to add, I have been grateful for every day of life I have had since first becoming diabetic when he was 15. I've always regarded each day as a sort of bonus. As I've mentioned that we have so many more ways to outsmart diabetes than John had back in 1959, but we still need the motivation to do so. Gratitude, when properly applied, will provide the motivation. Remember this verse, a cheerful look brings joy to the heart and good news gives health to the body. Here is an exercise that will help us focus on the good. Can you name 5 things or tasks that have happened to you since you left your home for this meeting tonight? Good things that have happened. How did you get here? Are you sitting or standing now? Can you hear what I'm saying? Are you by yourself now? Or are you currently with others who want to outsmart diabetes and live well? We've got to focus on the good. The one who seeks good finds goodwill, Proverbs 11. With these questions, that is what we just did, focused on the good for goodwill. Now, I read about a feisty 91-year-old grandmother living alone. You had to have complete surgery, hip replacement surgery. And of course, after the surgery, she was homebound. Her family, who didn't live nearby, was very concerned about her welfare. And the family wanted her to participate in a local Meals on Wheels program so that warm meals could be brought to her daily or weekly. So the grandmother was very independent and she didn't like being considered helpless. So tact had to be used to get her to participate. And a volunteer phoned her and cheerfully explained the Meals on Wheels program and how it relies on volunteers. And the volunteer asked, would you be interested in it? And there was a contemplative pause. Well, sure, the grandmother said. If you can't find anyone else to get food to the old people, I guess I can help. I like that woman's perspective, don't you? She didn't think of herself as a victim, but as a helper. So we too aren't victims. We can choose to be thankful. And so what about past yesterday? Choose is the operative word. Choose to look for the good. Here are 5 things you can reflect back on the day before, and you can jot them down and list them as good things. List them as gifts too. The blessings will vary more when you do that. And so this is a good exercise to use each morning or before you go to bed each night. Record 5 good things that have happened to you. And that way you're focusing on them and you can give thanks to God for them as well. There was one person that we had coming to the diabetes support, Randy, a former member of the diabetes support group. He did this with great benefit. He was confined in a rehabilitation facility for several weeks, and it helped him. What about past that's worth remembering? Remember when you felt grateful for what someone did for you that was made a profound difference in your life? When my wife and I and our little boys had moved to Kansas City area in 1986, one afternoon I experienced a traumatic event, a hemorrhage in my left eye. The news of the bleeding was distressing, but add to that the discovery that my health insurance company had gone bankrupt added to the stress. And while sitting in the waiting room with my wife and 2 little boys, the doctor's nurse overheard a conversation I was having with someone else sitting in there about our situation. And the nurse then informed the doctor, Dr. Zamansky. And when I went into Dr. Zamansky's office, he made a statement that I still get emotional about, and it's been 37 years ago. He said his nurse had told him of our situation. And then he told me that he would do laser treatment on my eyes without charge. And I remember his words as if they were spoke yesterday. Those boys need a father who can see. Well, today I am almost perfect, have almost perfect vision. He saved my eyesight, and I'm thankful to him. Do you remember a time? You go back into your memories and think of a time when someone did something that was significant for you. Did you really deserve it? Was it expected? Then think of it as a gift. Choose to think of good news and good things as gifts for which you can be abundantly grateful. It will make a positive difference in your health and your life. And so Dr. Zemansky, he used the pan-retinal laser photocoagulation treatment in both eyes, which was developed by Dr. Lloyd Aleo of the Joslin Diabetes Center, and thus saved my vision. Dr. Aleo saw too many people coming to the Joslin Diabetes Center who were using guide dogs or they were using canes. They were blind. And he had to do something about it. And his son said to me that when I was at the center in Boston in 2010, that's what he did. He did it. Now, you can see these are the retinas of my wife and myself. And mine, it's obvious which one are mine. But we can be thankful because I have perfect vision now, almost. And so what about pleasant feel-good page? You will have more pleasant thoughts when you choose to read from your feel-good page. And someone might say something like this, that it happens over and over. Yesterday, for example, I followed my prescribed meal plan almost perfectly, and I even skipped dinner. And so I woke up this morning, my blood sugar was 300. This is ridiculous. Why should I bother even trying? Well, was that very pleasant words? Pleasant words are like honey. They are sweet to the spirit and they bring healing to the body. That's what we need. And so we need to focus on our feel-good page, not the feel-bad page. It's easy to complain about the bad things that are happening in our lives, but it seems to take more effort to think about the good things. When we consider all the things that we have available today to help manage diabetes compared to how it was in the past, we can put those things on our feel-good page and be thankful. Many new medications, new insights into nutrition, fasting, and movement, and new tools like insulin pens, insulin pumps, glucose meters, continuous glucose monitors can all be listed on the feel-good page. And the way of wisdom teaches us to focus on this page. Whoever looks for the good finds goodwill. Now there's an 81-year-old Dr. Gary Arsham who has had type 1 diabetes for 71 years. He writes this good news. Well, he didn't write that. That's the proverb. But here's what he wrote. He says that you are the best available source of support for living well with diabetes. You are always there, and you know yourself well. No one else can take care of you as well as you can. And Dr. Beezer of the Joslin Diabetes Center says that we must speak reassuring, self-affirming talk. He writes this. He says, I am a strong and self-assured individual so that when monitoring or scheduling requirements affect my activities with others, I handle my needs without giving in to group pressures. I feel comfortable with and am able to educate those around me about why I need to frequently check and count my carbohydrates. I feel comfortable in my ability to make appropriate adaptations so that I can participate in social activities that I enjoy. And he's from the Joslin Diabetes Center. Have you ever compared yourself with others? If you were to do so, what is the best way to do it? I wish I was, or I'm glad I'm not. I wish I was like so-and-so who is healthier, wealthier, wiser. I wish I was like him. Well, that can just bring envy or resentment instead of gratitude. What we need to do is take the other one, I'm glad I'm not. And I learned of one person who was blind and only 27 years old. I saw demonstrated in his life a lack of wisdom, principles, and the devastating results. You could see the truth of the second half of Proverbs 10:27 in his life. Whoever respects the Lord will have long life, but the life of an evil person will be cut short. Now you may think evil is too strong of a word for this 27-year-old. It is true. I don't know what kind of support he had when he was growing up with his diabetes. I don't know what kind of friends he had. I don't know if he had loving parents who were blessing his life like I did. But what he was doing is, I'm glad I'm not like him. 27 years old. He says, when we look at this, he blamed anything and everyone for his situation instead of accepting responsibility. Instead of using the button at his bed to summon a nurse, he raves like a madman. Sometimes he would also bang on the wall while ranting, and it happened to be the wall that separated our rooms while I was in the hospital for 10 days. Then, when a nurse came into his room to help, he would criticize or scold her for not coming sooner. All of this wouldn't have had to happen if he had just learned to use the wisdom principles which he didn't know. We can all say that we are glad we are not like him, because we are learning the wisdom principles. In contrast, here is a young person with type 1 diabetes. She had positive, grateful attitudes, Elizabeth Hughes. Economic status does not exempt a person from being diagnosed with diabetes, just as it doesn't today. So her father, Charles Hughes, had been the governor of New York. He went on to hold various offices like the United States Secretary of State under the Harding administration, and later a Supreme Court justice. And when doctors diagnosed Elizabeth in 1918 at the age of 11, she was 5 feet tall and weighed 75 pounds. And when Dr. Frederick Banting, the discoverer of insulin, examined her on August 16, 1922, 3 days before her 15th birthday, she weighed 45 pounds. And so Elizabeth Hughes was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 1918, and there were times during the next 4 years that she consumed as little as 400 calories per day. And by the spring of 1921, she only weighed 52 pounds. She could only eat a mundane diet of food that kept her from showing sugar in her urine. And her father was the Secretary of State. Their home was in Washington, D.C., and in that environment of political stress, she could not attain proper control. And they could not keep an atmosphere of peace and calm for her, and there was just too much activity. So her parents decided to send her to the island of Bermuda for 6 months, accompanied by her nurse. And so Elizabeth Hughes loved to write to her mother during her stay in Bermuda in 1921. And she could have written about her intense sense of hunger and weakness, but there would be little need to be saying that. That would be nothing new. Instead, her letters were an upbeat recounting of her days. She might have been writing cheerful letters because that was what she wanted to have happen to her, to receive. She kept her letters focused on the positive and downplayed the inconveniences of her condition. And it's also possible that with her upbeat tone, she was just trying to think positively. And so, of course, Elizabeth Hughes was one of the fortunate ones to receive some of the first doses of insulin. And she described it as this: "Oh, it is simply too wonderful for words, this stuff. Isn't that unspeakably wonderful?" And she died in 1981 after taking 42,000 injections of insulin for 58 years. And so, again, research indicates all of these wonderful benefits for gratitude. You'll be more optimistic, feel more connected with other people if you're more grateful. You sleep better. You're more compliant to taking your meals and taking your medication and exercising more, and also reducing stress. And so those are wonderful benefits that we see coming from the attitude of gratitude. And here we go. You can just think of these concepts, these habits to develop. the present, live in the precious present, be thankful for each day. List 5 things from yesterday for which you are grateful. Look back on your memories of how people have helped you. Consider them like gifts. And you will have more pleasant thoughts when you choose to read from your feel-good page, not your feel-bad page. And so, that's the first little section there. The next thing we're going to do is look at water. Now, does anyone have any thoughts about the attitude of gratitude? Does it sound like worth putting into practice?
That was very well said.
Yeah. I think if we try to focus on the feel-good page, it's going to make a big difference in our lives. Rather than the feel-bad page, you make that feel-good page big. Make the feel-bad page small. That'll make a difference. So we're looking now at staying hydrated, making a positive difference in diabetes control and stress and health in general, hydration. And we get that from water. We can get hydration from drinking water, flavored water, and foods rich in water. And so the wisdom principle is this. This is not wisdom. You want me to drink water? It's too boring. Then add some sugar-free flavoring to it. And I've got some other ideas. Here's the wisdom. Like cold water to a weary soul is good news from a distant land. Remember when reading the proverb above, the statement made of God's wisdom teaching in Proverbs 4:22, they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. The basic meaning of the word proverb is represent. And proverbs are pictures of reality. What better way to picture the gratifying, exuberant effect that good news has on a person than with the image of the satisfaction of cold water to a thirsty person? The meaning here is not just about good news. In other words, the consequence of good news is pictured with a wonderful feeling that cold water gives to a thirsty person. And guess what? Cold water is good for your health. Now, I was in a supermarket, the one up here, and I overheard one of the workers there telling a customer how she was feeling with her diabetes. And then I had a little short visit with her. She said that let me start all over. I recently visited a worker at a supermarket, and I overheard her tell a customer how she was feeling with her diabetes. And then I had a short visit with her. She told me that she drinks water to bring down her blood glucose level, which amazingly works sometimes. Why? Dehydration makes a person feel fatigued. It can also elevate the stress hormone cortisol. Cortisol is a counter-regulatory hormone to insulin. Thus, when cortisol levels are elevated, insulin is less effective, and the result is elevated blood sugar levels. And so, drink water like a snow-cooled drink at harvest time. Is a trustworthy messenger to the one who sends him. He refreshes the spirit of his master. Dr. Willett of Harvard Medical School teaches drinking 64 ounces of water a day for a person on a 2,000-calorie meal plan. And others have suggested drinking half an ounce for every pound you weigh and an ounce for every minute you exercise to keep hydrated. According to French researchers, of 3,600 people, drinking 34 ounces of water can cut risk of elevated blood sugar when you combine that with water-rich foods. And what are water-rich foods? Here's some examples of them. There's air and water and fiber in these. Foods with water, there's fruits and vegetables, 80 to 95%. Hot cereal, low-fat, fruit-flavored yogurt, a boiled egg, and fish and seafood. And so, what do potato chips have? Oh, they're crunchy, yeah. 2% is what they have. Now, whenever we you look at this, all people lose weight no matter how much food they eat if for every 28 grams or 1 ounce, there's just 25 calories or less. Well, strawberries are one of them. Bell peppers, a tossed vegetable salad of 7 ounces, just 33 calories. And whenever you look at the next section, most people lose weight if it's 25 to 35 and a half. Now, just above that is 44 calories for chicken and turkey and egg. But here we get into the kinds of foods that will help you gain weight. You know what are they? Donuts, sausage, those type of things. So avoid them. That's the best thing to do. Just avoid them. And so what about carbonated soft drinks? Well, according to Harvard's Dr. Willett, these drinks work for staying hydrated, but are loaded with sugar. And sugar-free, artificially sweetened soda drinks are a concern. Many are wary of artificial sweeteners. And if that's a concern, get an infuser for fruit-infused water, or buy carbonated natural spring waters with flavors but no calories. And I've got one of them right here. This came from Sprouts there. And it says that it's got a little flavor of raspberry lime. And it does have a little bit of a flavor. But there's no artificial sweeteners in it. And it's carbonated. It tastes fantastic. So, we look at this and we find that with water deprivation comes increased appetite and stress, elevated levels of cortisol. Cortisol is one of those stress hormones. Staying in a good hydrated status can keep your stress levels down. And when you don't give your body the fluids it needs, you're putting stress on it. And it's going to respond to that. A way to determine dehydration is the color of urine. For example, the dark yellow or yellowish brown color could indicate dehydration. Studies have shown that being just half a liter dehydrated can increase your cortisol levels. So sound too easy? The link between water and stress reduction is well documented. All of our organs, including our brains, need water to function properly. And if you're dehydrated, your body isn't running well. And that can lead to stress. Studies have shown that being just half a liter dehydrated, about 16-ounce bottle of water, and can increase your cortisol levels. Hunger may actually be the need for more fluids. You can maximize your calorie burn by keeping water ice cold. It requires energy to warm it to core body temperature. And another consideration for weight loss is to drink water. Are you hungry or just need to drink something? Feeling hungry may signal the need for more fluids. How can you distinguish thirst from hunger? Well, sip a glass of ice water before grabbing something to eat, and then wait 5 to 10 minutes. A benefit of drinking water cold comes when drinking ice cold water. Ice cold water requires energy to warm it to core body temperature. So how many calories will you burn to bring an ice cold 16-ounce drink to body temperature? Well, 1 calorie per ounce. So it'd be 16 ounces. And if you drank 64 ounces of ice cold water a day, that would be 64 calories you burn there. So staying hydrated and drinking ice cold water is vital for those with health concerns, which is all of us. Wisdom's way teaches the mind of a person with understanding gets knowledge. The wise person listens to learn more. I drink small amounts of water throughout the day, 6 glasses with 6 to 8 ounces of water each time. To drink it all, that's my goal. To drink it all at once isn't good for you. And I combine drinking water with eating water-rich foods like vegetables and fruit also. So the wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. So here we are now. We're at the next step. We're going to look now at speed in eating. Now, is everyone getting enough water to drink? if you could get, some of these, that would help. But get it ice cold, and during the heat of the summer, ice cold water really tastes good. You don't have to put any flavoring or anything in it, but it's good. Okay, what about speed in eating? We're going to look at speed in eating. When we decide to eat, how quickly should we eat? Well, the following is an example of how patiently eating brings about great understanding for wise, mindful eating. Let me start over. Someone said, I've always enjoyed my food. I may eat fast, but it's often because, well, actually, I've never thought about why I eat fast, but it really doesn't matter. Well, it's not good to have zeal without knowledge and to be hasty and miss the way. And those who are patient have great understanding. The following is an example of how patiently eating brings about great understanding for wise, mindful eating. How do we eat? The table is set and you're ready for food. 12 hungry brothers sit at the table, ready to eat. Mom brings the food and puts it out before them. The food is limited and these guys are famished. Can you picture the scene? The only thing you hear is the chomping of teeth. How long would it take for them to clean their plates? I can imagine asking for dessert in 5 minutes. And when you sit down to eat, you're not just sitting with 11 hungry brothers, are you? Yet it is so easy to fall into the trap of devouring food without even tasting it. Now I've got a little illustration to share with you about this. But I've got to check this right now. It's beeping at me. Okay. My glucose monitor is beeping at me. Okay, here we go. Imagine a tiger chasing you, running for your life. A sharp, deep cliff confronts you. You have no place to go. The tiger is getting close. You can feel him breathing down your neck. And then you notice a rope dangling over the cliff and you grab it. Holding onto the rope for your life, you sway, dangling from the cliff. The tiger roars above, and 500 feet below you see sharp, jagged rocks. They invite you to fall. Then you notice 2 mice chewing on the rope above you. What should you do? The tiger above, the rocks below, and the rope is about to break, and just then you notice some delicious, wild strawberries. And you stretch out your hand, you pluck a strawberry, pop it into your mouth. The strawberry is so sweet and refreshing, you think, delicious. That's the best strawberry I've ever tasted. Now, if the tiger above or the sharp rocks below still occupied your mind, you would have never tasted and enjoyed the strawberries. We call this the precious present. And so what do? When we eat, are we focusing on the small texture, color, and rich taste of the food we're eating? Look at the food, noticing its color and texture. Pretend you will get a grade on a 200-word description that you will write of the food. Smell the food, inhaling the aroma before you take your first bite. Research indicates most people feel satiety, that is fullness, in about 20 minutes. And we haven't given ourselves time for that feeling to even catch up because we've gulped down our food instead of smelling and tasting it. 2 hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Sleep deprivation also impacts physical health. This is an impairment of hormones that relate to appetite. Less leptin, the feel full hormone, is released, and more of ghrelin, the still hungry hormone. This makes losing weight an even greater challenge. So the strategy is to sleep more and lose weight. Inadequate sleep relates to the feeling of satiety and to this strategy of eating slowly. Synergy results when these 2 principles come together, giving you more significant results than expected. And so what can we do? Previous studies have found that eating quickly results in eating more. Eating too fast outpaces the satiety signal. You get that full sensation